The broadcast is now starting. All attendees
Good
are in
afternoon, and
listen-only
thank you for
mode.
taking time to join me today. My name is James Brown, and I am the Information Technology Manager for the Center for Financial Planning. I've been involved in the technology profession for over 30 years, and the last 17 years of my career I have spent time as a computer consultant with various industries and as a software developer. Today's computer devices offer access to more information than ever before. Through a myriad of devices, we can catch up on the latest news, communicate with our peers, and check in with long-distance friends. Sadly, this availability and mobility has increased our exposure to criminal attacks. In this webinar, we're going to review some best practices to help you defend against attacks in today's environments. We're going to talk about basic security hygiene, mobile, wireless security, bad password practices, and some good password practices, good practices for social media, and the final solution in case things go wrong. In order to prevent disease and maintain good health within our bodies, there's a certain level of hygiene that we practice. In order to defend accounts and maintain computer health, there is also a certain level of hygiene we should practice. Prevention. I'm sure you've all heard about antivirus programs. In today's environment, it's just not viruses that pose a threat. The necessary tool for basic security hygiene is not just an antivirus program, but a protection suite of programs that monitor files and internet traffic to protect against computer viruses, malware, and redirection attempts. There are many good products on the market, and though this is not the forum to review the individual products, I can give you some guidelines in regards to what to look for in a product suite. Really good protection isn't free, but sometimes you can find a low cost or package that's bundled in with another service, such as one included with your internet provider. Check with your internet provider to see if they offer a protection suite for free or at a reduced cost. A protection suite should scan for viruses and malware. They should scan internet sites for some known issues and redirections, and have the facilities to download updated signatures so that the program is aware of the latest threats that are out there. Along with real-time scanning capabilities, the protection suite should also have the ability to schedule a deep scan for those files that are not being used in your computer. That way it's scanning the the files you're actively using as well as the ones that are at rest on your computer. Update. Well, when it comes to security, the latest and greatest is the best practice. When a threat is discovered, manufacturers will prepare a security fix for that particular threat and have it available for you. Make sure that your system is configured to automatically download updates from Microsoft, Apple, or your Linux vendor. Yes, you may have some difficulties with other changes that the updates perform, but the threat defense is more important than anything else. Firewall. A firewall monitors the traffic going to and from your computer or your network, and it only allows the traffic you want to flow through. This is an essential practice tool for a network or computer that is connected to the internet. And it's built in, available to your operating system, and usually part of your network configuration already. It just needs to be turned on. Safe browsing practices is also part of your basic security hygiene. The internet has a wealth of information available to you with only a few clicks. Unfortunately, there are a lot of bad stuff also waiting for you in those clicks. Luckily, there are some safe practices you can adopt that will protect you while you're browsing the internet. Make sure your browser's pop-up blocker is enabled. This is actually part of every browser that you have, whether you're using Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, or Safari. It can prevent you from malicious sites that try to redirect you to another site or have you click on a link that can download some malicious code. Avoid suspicious websites. If someone sends you a link to a website, take a good look at that link. Make sure it looks right to you. Many phishing attempts actually start off with a quick click on a website that you think is your bank site, but it's actually somewhere else. Take the time to hover over the link and make sure that the underlining hyperlink address is what it's supposed to be. If you're going to chase.com, make sure that you're actually in that chase.com link. Check your spelling when you're typing a URL into your web browser. One letter does make a difference. There's actually sites called typo squatting where they're waiting for you to mistype CM instead of a COM. And when you do, they redirect you to a site that looks almost exactly like the site you were going to, and that's how they capture your information. If you're going to be doing transactions online, make sure the site you're communicating with is security enabled. Now, a quick and easy way to tell that is at the beginning of your address, it'll have HTTP S as in Sam rather than just HTTP. And that means that it's actually a secure site using TLS and encryption. When available, use two-factor authentication, and that's something you know and something you have, whether it's your phone, a key fob, or maybe the system will actually dial your phone to just verify it's you. You need to especially do this if you're interacting with sites that contain financial information or other personal identifying information. Having that security code sent to your phone or other device is a significant security layer to your account protection and one of the strongest practices in your security hygiene regime. So let's talk a little bit about mobile wireless security. Okay. When you are outside of your office or your residence, you should turn off your Wi-Fi connections. If you don't really need to be on your wireless connection, then just turn it off. When you do need to connect, turn it on. It's safer that way. When you're in, for example, a coffee shop, make sure you're connecting to the correct network. Ensure that that Wi-Fi hotspot is the correct one. For example, if you're enjoying a hot beverage at Big Cup's coffee shop, chances are the hotspot named Big Cup of Jim is not the right one. Check with the employees at the establishment to make sure that you're connecting to the right wireless access points. There are a lot of people that will set up wireless access points for you to connect to and then actually grab your information while you're doing your transactions. Turn off file sharing also. When you're in a public place, you don't really need to have someone trying to get to your files. So it's always a good practice to turn that off. You could always turn that back on when you get into your office. When working remotely or even mobilely, you want to make sure that you limit the types of transactions you conduct. A lot of Wi-Fi hotspots do not actually encrypt the data that's traveling on their network. Public Wi-Fi is a perfect place for what's called a man-in-the-middle attack, or someone surfing over your shoulder to grab your information. So, maybe the coffee shop is not the best place for you to do online trading or check your most recent account balance. Never leave a device unattended in a public area. You would think this is common sense, but I've witnessed it firsthand on several occasions. If you have to leave the area, take the device with you. Aside from it being stolen, a software program can be loaded easily onto the computer to grab information at a later date. And don't depend on that automatic screen lock either. An attacker can swoop into your seat as soon as you step away and keep the device from going to sleep, or use what's called a mouse jiggler to make sure it stays awake until they can do whatever they need to do on your system. If you do have to do financial transactions remotely, make sure you're on the company's secure site instead of their app. And again, the secured site is one that begins with the HTTPS. Rarely does a mobile app actually show you if it's secure or not. There has been issues in the past discovered with some mobile apps, and when you're on an unsecured network, it's always best to use a secure site rather than the mobile app that might be on your phone or your tablet. Next, heed the warnings. Depending on the protection suite you're using and the operating system you're using, you'll actually be warned if a website doesn't seem right or there could be a potential risk of infection. Yeah, those little prompts that come up every now and then from your computer are a bit annoying, but when you're on an unsecured network, pay close attention to what it's saying. They're usually not errors, they're usually messages telling you that the system thinks there might be something wrong or something is being downloaded without your permission and it's asking for your permission. You don't want to give permission to a program unless you actually ask for something to be downloaded. Now, the best security you can have when working in wireless hotspots or working mobile is a virtual private network connection. And you can get these set up for your house as well as your office. And the great thing about a VPN is that it creates a secure tunnel between wherever you are and wherever you're trying to get to, so that back and forth communication is encrypted. Now, I'd like to spend a little bit about some good and bad password practices. And so first we're going to take the bad first, and we're going to go with the good. Now, we've all been in the situation where we needed to choose a password, and we chose something that would be easy for us to remember. The fallout from this decision can be an easily compromised account, stolen identity, or money loss. One of the bad password practices I've seen is choosing a password that can be found in the dictionary. Most hackers have a brute force tool that can go through every word in the dictionary in seconds. And depending on the computer, less than seconds, milliseconds. So the longer password you have, the more difficult it is for a brute force attack. And every low-level hacker has this tool, and it's just not good enough to replace a 1 with an exclamation mark. You have to put a little bit more work into your passwords if you want to stay secure. Another thing I've seen is using the same password for years. This falls what happens is over the years you've created a very secure password. That's the password you decide to use. Unfortunately, we have more and more attacks that are happening on data systems, and so it's almost guaranteed at some point your password is going to be stored in a database somewhere, and that database is going to be compromised. And once they have those credentials, they have the keys to the kingdom. And if you've been using the same password for years and years and years, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to have some kind of identity theft or information taken. And along that vein, with the same password for years is the same password for all of your security needs. Again, that's a comfort level. I also used to do that, where I'd have one really good password I created and I use it for all my security accounts. And again, keys to the kingdom. If your account gets compromised, then the attackers, the threat agents will have access to all of your accounts. One of my favorites when I first got into information technology was the bad password practice of writing your password down and taping it to the bottom of your keyboard. Now, you find this mostly in office environments. It's done primarily in case you're out sick, someone can still log into your computer, or in case you forget it. Please realize that a fellow employee, a visitor, or a member of the cleaning crew also can have access to your system. And flipping over the keyboard is one of the first things I do when I need to take a look for a password, and I'm sure others do also. Kind of think of this as your home. Would you leave a key to your house under your welcome mat and not expect anyone to look there? Would you tape your password under your keyboard and expect no one to look there? Another bad practice is saving your username and password to a passwords file on your computer, whether it's a passwords.txt file or a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. I can understand the practice with all the different passwords for all the different sites. It's easier to put it all in one place. Um, Part of the problem is normally when someone does that, they want to make it easy for them to find it when they need it, so they'll put the word password somewhere within the name. And that's the first thing a hacker looks for when they access the system, is anything containing the word password. And then once they get that file, then they have the information they need. Now, you can also encrypt this file with a password using Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Access. But I will tell you that there are actually tools that you could purchase that will allow you to brute force your way into those programs. So though those programs do give you a higher level of security than having it not password protected, it's not foolproof. It really isn't the place to store your account information or passwords in a file on your computer. The next practice that I want to talk about is using personal identifiers. A lot of times in a race to create a password, we'll choose passwords that are related to familiar things, pets' names, favorite sports team, and so forth. With an ever-increasing cyber footprint, this is no longer a good practice. Okay, it used to be that you would share your information only with your close family and friends. They're the only ones that would know your pet name. But if you have a social media account, or if you've ever posted online, I'm pretty sure that there's at least one picture of your pet on it with a post containing your pet's name. It's just not a good practice. This information can be found out pretty easily. So now that we've talked about the bad, let's talk about the good. You should always use strong passwords and change them often. Yes, I know changing passwords can be a bit of a pain and does kind of lead to you writing the passwords down, but it still is a practice that should be adopted. Make your password more than 10 characters. Make it a little bit harder for someone to actually guess it or to use a brute force attack. Try using a combination of characters in your password: capital letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. An example is, password by itself is not a very strong password, but the word identification with a K instead of a C, that's a lot better. Another recommendation I would make for a good password practice is to use a phrase instead of a word. Make it something relevant to you. You'll see up on in the presentation, not my pencil. If you convert that to the symbols of the pipe mark, the greater than sign, N0T, that actually forms out the words in your head. Or another good combination is the my favorite shirt is red. And as you can see, that converts to the MY5 listing here. It makes it a lot harder for a system to be cracked into, but it's a little bit more easier for you to remember. Always use different usernames and passwords for different security needs. Okay? Unless the site really needs your email address as a username, create a new username that's specific to that site. So if it's, let's say, Facebook, and if they're not requiring your email address, you may want to put face plus whatever username you're going to use. That way, if something does happen to one of your social media accounts, it doesn't affect every social media account. And lastly, use a password manager. A password manager is a little bit different than just storing it in a file. The password manager actually encrypts the information with a very high level of encryption that would actually be very difficult to hack into with today's computers. And in fact, there are certain password managers that will self-destruct if you put in too many bad passwords. So if you're going to write the passwords down, my recommendation is really use a password manager. Social media practices. You want to do a search for yourself online. Okay? See what's out there. Make sure that the public viewing of your information is what you actually want to see. Okay? So you've got a cyber footprint out there, whether you use LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and make sure that the information that's out there is what you want people to see. Use strong passwords. We have a habit when we're doing social media accounts to not be as secure. We don't use the two-factor authentication. We don't use strong passwords. We figure, oh, it's just a link of photos. But the link of photos can actually give insight to people that are going to be doing phishing attacks and get information that they really shouldn't have about you. As I mentioned before, use different passwords for each of your media accounts. Okay, very important. Go through the extra step of setting up your security answers and privacy options. It's only going to take a few moments, but the security answers are not there only to help you in case you forget your password. It also makes it hard for the threat agents to go out and to force a password change. One of the great tricks that are out there is to go to a site, say that you forgot your password, guess on some answers, they get a verification code, they change your password, they now have access to your account. Use a separate email address. Okay, the email address is something you give out every day. Okay, for most of us, it's actually written on a business card. It's a good idea to separate the email address you use in social media and the email address you use for your everyday correspondence. On one hand, it adds a really good layer of security, and on the other hand, it allows you to easily separate social media correspondence from your day-to-day correspondence and allows you to prioritize your day a little bit easier. Be selective with your connection requests. Following everyone that likes your site or your posts can kind of let the wrong person in. One of the ways to do social media incorrectly is to accept connections from everyone that discovers you. This is kind of like the old rule that your mother used to tell you about, you're known from the people you hang out with. So focus on the connections that matter, those that have a personal or business relation to you. Because who you follow and what you like can send the wrong message as well as the right message. When dealing with social media, also beware of too much information. I'm sure we've all heard the stories of people posting on social media that they were on vacation. And then after the vacation, they came home and found their house broken into. There are a lot of people trolling the internet looking for information. They want to know that you're in Hawaii. They want to know that you're going to be away for a few days. And that's going to help them not only perhaps take advantage of the situation with your house, but perhaps also do some identity theft because they actually know some information about where you'd like to go. My general recommendation is always just save the vacation pictures and posts until you get back at home. Okay? Along with not posting when you're on vacation, you also want to consider not posting all the locations that you're eating at, or if you're waiting at a doctor's office or waiting at an attorney's office. This is all information that could be used for a phishing attempt, because now I know the name of your doctor, I know the name of your attorney, I know where you'd like to eat, and so I could use this information to try to, it's called social engineering, talk with people at your company or maybe your house to try to get a little bit more information. And I would see familiar because I know your doctor, I could be calling from your attorney. Don't link personal social accounts. It looks like it's easy to link social accounts. It's one less headache, one less password. You can post in one place and have it distributed. But you also increase the chance of sending the same message twice. And also, if there is a situation where your account is compromised, all of your accounts are going to be compromised because that person is going to have access to everything. And finally, log off when you're done. When you're done using social media, always select the log off or the sign out. I've seen a lot of people actually leave their social media accounts logged in, even on a kiosk or a public terminal, and that just increases the chance of a hacker or a threat agent being able to access information from a different website, because when you're logged in, there's all this information that's being stored about you in your temporary space that they can utilize. Right. So, final solution. You've done the best hygiene computer practices for security, and things still went bad. Unfortunately, sometimes some things happen no matter what you do. Okay? So your final solution is back up your files. Okay? Whatever can happen will happen. It's just a matter of time. And it's a good practice to always have a backup. Okay? For the plan, the first thing you need to do is look at what files are important to you. Our pictures are important to us, tax documents, and so forth. A memo that I wrote to a colleague 10 years ago may not be as important. Secondly, you have to determine which method works best for you. Should you back up to a little USB drive, or should you back up online? You know, there are pluses and minuses to both. If you choose an offline solution like a USB drive, or sometimes you'll see they're called backup bricks or shuttle drives, make sure you keep it in a safe location, protected from fire damage, water damage, or theft. Next, you need to decide who needs to have access to this backup in case of emergency. You know, because you want to make sure that backup is password protected. Who should get that password in case something happens and you need to get some information off of that? Now, the backup is going to help protect you in case your system gets infected. There's actually a really bad piece of software going out around, and I'm sure you've seen it in the news and the papers, called ransomware, which will actually encrypt your whole hard drive so that you can't have access to any of your files unless you pay these hackers, and even if you do pay them, there's no guarantee you get all your files decrypted. So in case that happens, if you have a backup of your system, no harm, no foul. You've just lost some time, but you still have all your data. Computers fail. They're on every day. There's heat being generated, and electronics will eventually fail. If it does fail, again, you have your backup. And there's a lot of external events that can cause a reason to have a backup: fire, water, perhaps your computer was stolen, or your laptop when you went to the coffee shop. Okay? So once you have your plan in place, I want you to make sure that you back up often, keep your backups encrypted, make sure that there's a password for them, and periodically do a test restore. Whether you back up online or you back up to a USB device offline, just make sure you can get a file off of that backup device and restore it to your computer. That way you know it works. And then whether you go online or offline, you're going to want to evaluate your retention needs. And that is how long you actually want to keep the backup. Okay? So depending on the type of data that you're backing up, you may need to keep it longer. For example, PDFs, pictures, and videos, they have a lower rate of change than, let's say, a Microsoft Word document. And what I mean by that is you're not going to change your pictures much or a PDF document much, but you may make some edits to a word processing document. So the word processing document has a higher rate of change for its first few days of existence, and then after a week or a month, you usually don't go back and modify that one the same. So you're going to want to have a discussion with your backup vendor in regards to the type of backup, whether you're going to do a full or just copy everything over, or just backup file changes, and then how long you should retain the backup, especially if you're going to be doing online backups, because that can actually cost a lot more money for the storage resources than you need to spend. Okay, so I'd like to thank you for spending time with me today. If you have any questions, you'll see my email address is on the screen. Please feel free to email me, and I'll try to help you as best I can and answer your questions. And you have a great day.